Yo guys, it's Arcade and today we are gonna make uplifting and powerful trance track. It is inspired by Armin Van Buuren and similar artists. Also, we are only going to be using FL Studio's stock plugins. So let's get started, and this video is brought to you by Skillshare, more on that later. To get started, let's set the BPM to 140, which is pretty good for trance. It's pretty fast. We are going to get started with the drums. So let's start with the kick. You want some snappy kick, like this one, with a nice top kick, and you're just gonna right click it and fill each 4 steps. So we have this simple kick rhythm. Put it in the playlist. Next, let's add an open hi-hat and a clap. So I'm using this open hi-hat and then this one. The difference between these two is that the first one is longer and it's spanned to the left, and the second one is a little bit shorter because I increased the out knob and it's spanned to the right to create this interesting effect. And for the clap, I have this simple main clap from my sample pack, which just works. And we're gonna put that in the playlist and it sounds like this. You can hear the kick has some sort of tone in it. You could delete it by increasing the out knob, but I actually like it there, so I'm gonna keep it. By the way, all of the samples I'm using in this video are from my sample pack platform, Staple Sounds, where you only pay once and you get access to all of my current and future sample packs forever. So check it out, link is also below. So we have this simple drum beat. One more thing we're gonna add is some rides. So I'm using this ride sound. And again, just a simple rhythm like this. But to make it more interesting, I'm actually gonna put transient processor on it and increase the release. So that way the sustain of the ride is sort of prolonged. Here's the difference with no transient processor and then with it. So you can see it sort of drags on a bit longer. So here's how it sounds. So we have the drums ready, let's move on to the next sound. Next, we want to introduce the bass. So for the bass, I'm using this sound called Be Lower from Flex. And it's a simple sub bass. And then this one, which is more like a gritty bass. So together, they sound like this. So here's the melody I created. So yeah, pretty simple, but here's what you want to do in trance is to sort of use these offbeat chords or whatever you want to call it. So it's not like straight chords on the grid, but they are always a little bit off. So the changes in the melody, in the bass are a bit faster than usual. As far as the actual melody goes, I go like down with it. And then I go back up. So as you can see, we started A3, then F3, then D3, and then we go back to F3 and A3. So that's my bass line. As far as the effects go, I have sidechain on it using a loft filter. So you can do sidechaining in loft filter like this, sort of emulating like a Kickstart plugin or something like that. If you want a tutorial for that, link is below in the description. So that's on my sub bass, and on the other bass, the gritty bass, I removed all of the low frequencies because we don't want them, because we already have the sub bass for that, and boosted some of the high frequencies here as well. And it sounds like this with the drums. Now let's move on to the next sound, which is the melody. So for the melody, I'm using Flex again. Actually, I'm using it pretty much for everything here. I think it's the best FL Studio stock plugin for sounds, so that's what I'm using. By the way, if you don't have FL Studio yet and you want to get it, link is below in the description as well. So the first sound we are using is this Flexi plug. Really big reverby plug with delay. Perfect for trance. And then we have this one, which is more like a lead. Definitely very different from the first sound. That's why they sort of complement each other. So here's the melody that I created, and we actually have 2 melodies for this track. So this is the first one, more simple one. So we have some switching in between octaves. So as you can see, we go from A5 to A6, then B5 to B6, then C6 to C7. And that's sort of the idea behind this melody, to switch in between the octaves. So the simple melody would be like this. You get the point, and then we add the octaves, which are sort of offbeat as well. And that's sort of the idea behind this first melody. So that's the first melody, and I have some effects on it. First one being EQ and just boosted some of the high frequencies. Then we have Maximus, which adds a lot, and I used one of these max loudness presets or something like that. I'm not sure, it doesn't show which preset that I used, but I basically went through some of them, and whichever sounded the best, I used that. So as you can hear, it makes it a lot more saturated, it makes the reverb more obvious as well. This changes the sound a lot. And the last but not least is the reverb, and again we have quite a bit of it, but after Maximus, so the reverb is not affected by the Maximus. Otherwise, if you put Maximus below it, the reverb will be affected by Maximus. So the actual order of these matters. A lot of reverb in trance is good. You want to create this big atmosphere, so reverb helps with that a lot. And of course, the lead and plug is sidechained as well, the same way that I showed you before with Fruity Low filter. Here's how it sounds. So we have the bass and the melody. Now let's take a look at the chords. And listen, if you want to learn more about music production or FL Studio, then I would recommend our sponsor today, which is Skillshare. Skillshare is a platform where you can learn new skills, including your favorite music production, just a guess. So there's tons of classes on music production that explain everything in detail, and I think these can teach you a lot more than a YouTube video. So whether you want to get more plays on Spotify, learn how to play the piano, or learn more about FL Studio, Skillshare has it all. Now if you do want to check out more classes on FL Studio, you can just search for it, so type in FL Studio, and you'll see many classes and many hours of content about FL Studio. Right now, I would recommend this one by Chester Sky, Music Producer Masterclass, Make Electronic Music with FL Studio. There is 45 lessons in this class, and it can teach you pretty much everything you need to know about how to make EDM in FL Studio. So if you want to get access to this class or any other class on Skillshare, check out the link in the description below. The first 1,000 people who click the link below will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. That means you get access to all of the classes on Skillshare for 1 free month. So check it out, link below. And now let's get back to the video. And we are back. Now let's take a look at the chords. So for the chords, I'm using this sound and this sound. And here are my chords. So we have these ones that are long ones, and then we have these short ones as well. So to make the chords, it's really easy. You take your bass notes, right? And you copy them, go to your chord sounds, paste them in, and press Ctrl G to have one note at a time, not like one after another. And then to create a chord, just select the first note and create this shape. And this is a simple minor chord. So the shape is skip 2 notes, then put a note on the third one, and then skip 3 notes and put a note on the fourth one. That's a basic minor chord. You can also use the stamp tool to put minor chord in here. And if you want to make a major chord, just move this note 1 up. So depending on what fits better in your chord progression, switch between the minor and major chords. And you can also move this middle note 1 octave higher by holding Ctrl and arrow up. And then you have more of a trance chord. It's the same chord, but the notes are in different order, but it just works better. So that's how I made these chords, and here they are. This is how they sound. So they basically follow the bass notes, and they do add a lot more frequencies to the whole song, to the whole drop, make it sound fuller. As far as the effects go, there's quite a bit. We have Luxverb, and the preset I'm actually using is this Diffuse Large Hole, because I remember that, and it adds a lot of reverb. Makes everything a bit more atmospheric. Then we have Transient Processor, again boosting the release, so the sustain is longer and has more power. And I lowered the attack, so the initial plucky sound is a bit more subtle. And then I also have Stereo Shaper on Stereoize 2. That means the sound is not in the middle of the mix, but it's more to the sides of the mix. And yeah, it's also sidechained, as all the other sounds. So every time the kick hits, the volume of this is lowered and then it goes back up. Creates more space for the kick. So that's that. Here is how it sounds in the whole song. So for now we have the basic structure of the trance track elements ready, like the bass, chords, leads, plucks and drums, but we need more of course. So we're gonna add some effects, and then I'm gonna show you the second part of the song, which uses the same sounds but completely different melodies. So here are some of the effects that I'm using. Again, all of these samples are from my sample pack platform Staple Sounds, where you only pay once and you get access to all of my current and future sample packs forever. So I'm using some vocals here. Sort of in the background. Again, these are sidechained. Then we have the classic sweeps, some crashes, some up sweeps, some snare rolls. So the way you do this is go to Graph Editor, find pitch and go up with the pitch. Also in the piano roll, you can do it as well. Find pitch. Like that. So if you hold the Alt key, you can put samples off the grid, one after another if you want to. So feels like these are really important. They do make the track pop a lot more. So then I have some big crashes and impacts where the breakdown is going to be. So you want like a big hit there. So yeah, that is that. A lot of white noise, a lot of crashes, and some snare rolls as well. Now let's take a look at the breakdown or a build-up. It's like a combination of both. And I'm gonna show you the second part of the track, which is way more exciting actually. But before we move on there, I do want to show you one more thing to use for transitions. And the best one to use is this effect that I'm gonna show you right now. And that's this high pass filter sort of thing. So as you can hear, we have this high pass filter, which removes all of the bass frequencies from the sound. So you want to have an EQ, you want to set the filter to high pass, and then you automate this knob right here, create automation clip, so it goes from left to right. And then it goes back. So that's a really cool transition effect for trance music. I also combined it with some more reverb and some delay as well, set up like this. But now let's move on to the build-up that will lead to our second drop, which is way more exciting. I have a new melody here, and it's this one. So again, switching in between high notes and low notes. And that is the melody that I came up with. And I'm using the same sound as before, the flexi pluck. And I'm actually using the same automation for the transition effect, but I'm using it the other way around. So it starts off with no low frequencies and then they come back in. And then in the build-up, we have the melody, we have the chords, the same chords as before. And the bass is a bit different now. So it's the same melody for the bass, but different rhythm. As you can see, I switch in between the octaves. We have A3 and then A4, and added a bit more filler notes like that. So in the second drop, it's more interesting. It's even more epic and bigger than before. So that's what we have in the build-up. Also some build-up drums, really simple, just slap them in. Again from my Staple Sounds sample pack. And that's our build-up. And then we hit it with the second drop, which is again the same sounds as the first drop, but the bass is more intense. We have the chords. Then we have the melody, same sounds here. But I did add one more layer, which is this one. So one more plucky layer in flex. So we have this layer. 3 layers like that, and the same drums once again. Then we add the rides as well, And yeah, that is pretty much it. The second drop is pretty much the same sounds as the first drop, but a different melody. That is almost it for this track, but here is a few more tips for you. So when doing the arrangement, make sure to turn off the drums at like the end of first repetition of a drop. That can help a little bit to set you up for the second repetition of the drop. So like here, we turn off the drums for a little bit. Second tip is to use the transition effect. I'm using it in the drop as well, right here. And for a simple arrangement, I created this beginning, this intro, where I only play the melody with the chords. Then added this simple build-up. And that is my simple arrangement. If you want to get this FLP file, it's actually included on Staple Sound's platform, so check it out, link is below, so you get access to all my sample packs and the FLP files from my videos as well. But now, let's have a listen to the finished result. Enjoy! And hey guys, that is pretty much it for this video. Make sure to check out Skillshare, link is below, and also all the other links that you might need are there in the description. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!